How can an artist stand out within their field?
In the pottery community, everyone's influenced by everyone, so you have to change it. You have to make it new. You have to keep on moving forward.
Welcome to Conversations from the Collection, a Newcastle Art Gallery podcast. I'm your host, Zana Kobayashi, and this week we speak with Torres Strait Islander ceramicist Janet Fieldhouse. Janet's work pushes and pulls between the traditional and the contemporary. Through her hand-built sculptures, she simultaneously records and reinterprets traditional stories and practices from the Torres Strait. Her unique forms also combine Western ceramic techniques with First Nations pottery practices from the Pacific and the Americas, places where she's undertaken numerous cultural and artistic exchanges. Newcastle Art Gallery holds 4 works from the series Never the Same by Janet Fieldhouse within its collection. And in this conversation, Janet speaks about how she infused these works with goodwill and love, and reveals the exciting places this series has taken her. Janet joined us online from Naarm, Melbourne, where she is currently at RMIT University for their Artist in Residence program. And we began our conversation speaking about an important mentor in Janet's career, the groundbreaking ceramicist, Dr. Thankupi Gloria Fletcher, AO.
When I was a student, it was interesting to see how she did her practice and the simplest ways of expressing herself as an artist. It was really interesting. And then over the years, going from TAFE to uni, you had to do research about somebody. And I thought, I'll do a little bit more on her. And it was interesting because she was the first Indigenous woman to actually study in Sydney. Mm. Yeah, it was interesting to learn a lot of things coming from her. And when I went back up to Weipa to see my family, I would actually go and find her because she was being busy and she was getting older as well. And I also saw her again at the Shepparton Arts Award, the Indigenous one.
Which you were awarded the first one, the inaugural Indigenous Ceramic Arts Award in Shepparton. Is that the award that you're talking about?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
It was really funny as well because I was doing my master's at the same time. And when I had placed the work in, Thankupi's manager at the time, Jennifer Isaac, she was actually the judge and she wasn't sure about the material that I was using, was clay. Mm. So I had to do a workshop and I explained to her what it was and where it came from. And when she saw me doing it in normal clay, she went, oh, okay, yep, okay, she knows her process. So, yeah, it was interesting. But, yes, I had to argue the point of that material I was using at the same time because it was a new product in Australia.
It was a new type of clay, is that right?
Technically, it is clay, but it comes in sheets instead of in the natural material. Ah. We can talk clay all day, but it's one of those things that it gets hard to explain to somebody that doesn't know the background of ceramics. So sure. I usually just do the limit of what it is. Because you get a blank look when you start talking and you go, okay, I don't know what you're talking about now.
They're tapped out. Yeah, that's really like, the tools, isn't it?
It is. I can talk about it with my family and they still go blank. So I just go with the minimum so they can understand what I'm doing.
Well, maybe we can touch on maybe the themes around your work. So your cultural lineages are Kalalaga Ya and Miriam Mer, and your art documents and reinterprets cultural traditional practices and ancestral knowledge. And I was wondering if you could tell us about your research process.
Do you have 3 hours?
I've got as long as you're going to give me.
I'll go with the small version. The process, well, you're growing up and you learn bits and pieces, so you don't really think about it. And it's only when you go to universities they get you to think about what you're wanting to express in your art. Mm. And when I was doing my master's, I thought about there's not enough women out there. So I started looking at what women had done in that time when I was a student to when I was doing my master's. So I did a little survey to see if they were an artist or a hobbyist or they just make their art to be a commercial thing. So yeah, it was a small amount of women that actually applied back to me. And then I actually physically went up there to do the research.
There's something about, person to person
Yes,
communication.
it was good. There were so many things you learn from family that is on the islands, and then you go back. So I went to all the museums and checked out to see if they had any women's objects. Not many, but it was a start.
What's your relationship like to the sort of institution and seeing those works within those institutional spaces?
It was interesting because they had so many other objects, but when you are looking for something that is on the line of your culture and you can't find it, it gets frustrating. I couldn't find it, so I had to actually go to the Kobayashi and pull out books that white fellas had written.
Yeah.
And that's where I got a lot of the information. So, and then I think I went back 2 more times up to the Torres Strait and spoken to a couple of the older uncles and asked them if it was true, and they go yeah or no, and then I would ask them if it's possible to seed on that idea, and they said there's no going back because I had already started writing and talking about it.
No turning back now.
Yeah, I put it in a way where it reflected both cultures, males and females, so it wasn't discriminative between both of them.
You've described your work as becoming more abstract. I've heard you say it isn't really the object, it's the form of the idea of the object. And what I guess has that abstraction allowed you to explore in your work and your culture?
I've got an exhibition coming up in Cairns next year, so the idea of cultural materials, it's interesting in itself because how far can you take the cultural materials, because everything is modern these days. You have to go with the times. So I'm looking at what is cultural materials in the idea of how we see it and what was then, what is it now. It's one of those subjects that I've been wondering because everything's changing so much, so fast, and we're trying to keep up with the times as well as Indigenous people. So it's one of those things that's going to be part of it. What is cultural materials? How far can we push it?
I've heard you talk about extending on culture.
Yeah, because our younger generation, especially the ones on mainland, don't get the chance to go to the islands. It's one of those things that I hope I express what is culture, especially Torres Strait culture. Yeah, that is the hardest thing because I grew up on mainland. I've never lived up on the island. So everything is from what my parents have told me and my uncles and aunts and all the ones that had lived up there. So, yeah, it's really hard. And I think it would be harder for the new generation because they don't get that chance, especially if they don't know family as well.
It's a generous interpretation that you're giving the next generation around culture, that they can expand upon it or reinterpret things in a way that feels true to them or true to their experience in this modern world. Am I on the right path there?
Yes, because it will be hard for them because with the climate changing as well, we don't know if those islands are going to stay there forever. So it's one of those things that the more you learn from family now and you can pass it on, it's good.
For you, when do you think something becomes a cultural material?
I think it's when somebody put it on to their art or make that art.
Oh, wow.
I reckon.
Yeah. So then, I mean, technology could be cultural material. could be classified as it.
I reckon so, because they're going back to what they're thinking of for themselves is perceived as their culture as well. So they're recording it over the years for themselves or whoever is there. It could be 2-3 years or 100 years until it could be culture material.
Yeah. It's almost like you can't tell if something's a cultural material until you're looking at it in the rearview mirror or retrospectively. When's that point? When does it switch over to being a contemporary material or
I think I was told when I was at uni that my work was very contemporary in arts because I didn't actually follow was there rules? If there was, I broke them all.
No one told you.
No. So, contemporary is what I am. I change every time when I do something. And I find that if I do it, I could change it again to make it better than the first time or the third time.
There's that reinterpretation again that's in your practice, that coming back, pushing forward, moving forward.
Yeah, and does that class as cultural material as well? What is next to be placed or make of that object? Or that thing. It could be media soon.
Have you thought about bringing technology into your work?
No. I think I'll just stay with pottery.
Janet, I'd love to now turn to your works in the Newcastle Art Gallery collection. Never the Same Witchery 2021 is a series of 4 small ceramic figures with different woven or feathered body adornments, and they explore the use of ritual and charms in Torres Strait Islander culture. Could you tell us a little bit more about those practices?
The way I got to make witchery, what I do is I usually grab something from a previous exhibition that I haven't really looked at properly and pull it forward. And from that, it was looking at charms. And that's where the witcheries come from. They're a small version of charms, but it's the idea of my charms because it's a taboo object in some ways. So I've been asked the same question because I made larger ones of it. They're made of love. It's harmony and it's good. These charms I made was for fun as well.
Yes.
To see how far I can actually push them further. The reason why I called it Never the Same was because usually I would look at the object from what I grabbed and it's not the same as when I made these new ones. So I've just grabbed one from the previous, pull it forward. And witchery was one of those ones.
Yes, you said that you infuse them with goodwill and positivity.
Yes.
And how do you do something like that?
You always think of good things.
While you're making?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
The traditional charms were made of stone, and when they used it at that time, it could be for bad, it could be for good. So the way I made it was for good.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that we have these positive and good-willed charms in our collection.
I tried to put a lot of things into it with the feathers because the traditional ones are wrapped up and hidden, where these ones are slightly hidden but with different features to it. Also, the idea of dance, the basket weaving, carrying, collecting, memory. Yeah, there's so many things that happens in them.
I'm glad that you mentioned the feathers and the twine because a lot of your work incorporates those other elements. And I was wondering where you sourced those materials from.
When I was in Krugeroo, they sent my work over there as well for the residency. So I had to have an exhibition. And through customs, they have to check everything. And because I had feathers on it, they had to ask where the feathers came from. And at the time, I had feathers that were cassowary, but they were very old cassowary feathers that came from New Guinea. And then they asked about the white feathers. So I explained that I bought it from feathers.com. The best place I've ever used. So I'm not destroying the environment in a way of grabbing everything from the plants or animals. So it was easier to look for things like that.
Yeah.
So that's where the idea of cultural materials, because I'm actually sourcing it from everywhere else and expressing it differently with that type of material.
Do you ever collaborate with anyone else to realise elements like these sort of elements of your work?
I've worked with other artists, but I've never used their techniques. So when I was doing the residency, I did a quick trip over to New Guinea. There was only like 2 or 3 ladies that knew pottery. So we did an exchange. So I showed them what I can do, and then they showed me what they did in the techniques. They probably use different tools to what we would.
It's a beautiful exchange. You've had a lot of that exchange across your career and practice, haven't you? And you've travelled across the world, Japan, the USA, and had extended periods of residency in those places. What does travelling to other countries and connecting with other First Nations people give your practice?
When I went to Kookaroo, it was one of those things that I wanted to find out cultural materials again. It was just seeing what they used to use or they still use. It was really interesting to see that they did use a lot of the same materials, but in a different way.
You've just completed a commission with the National Gallery of Australia for the Sculpture Garden. It's titled Sister Charm 2023. You were sort of mentioned earlier that you've done bigger works of charms
from the Witchery series.
Yes. So is this the bigger version of those works?
It is. It's one of them.
What was it like working at that much larger scale?
It was weird because when I was offered to just place my name in the list of artists that was put forward, I just went, yeah, sure, because you don't know if you're going to get it or not. So I just went, yeah, sure. I know I'm not going to get it, so go for it.
Oops.
Yeah. I went, I've got to go and make something now. So because NGA had actually looked at the witcheries, they were really drawn to it. So I thought, okay, I'll stay with the theme of what witchery was, but I end up just calling her Sister Charm and put some of the different elements that I had with your collection towards that one as well. So there was a big mixture of it. So I actually carved the clay and then I still waved and used feathers, but it was really interesting. The process that they had is really, really interesting. I couldn't believe how they go from one that is about 20 centimetres to 3 metres.
Yeah. Did you start with a like a smaller model and then work up from there, or what was the starting point of that process?
The process was I had already made the object for them. It was white clay with the feathers, so they can actually take the feathers off as well if they wanted to. It was up to them, but I ended up getting more clay and I just did a whole block of clay figures and just slightly changed them in the figure form.
What was the fabrication process like?
Well, what they did is they took that little form, took photos on all the sides, and then from there they did a little calculation and it went to a machine that did foam cutting out. Then they have somebody to actually put what texture I would use on the clay, and they would try and figure out how they were going to do it on that big form. And they go into the process of cutting it in quarters, make the mould, and then from there cast it.
And what size did it grow to?
With the feather also, it would reach to close to 2.5. I think it was. With the plinth, it would make it look taller as well.
Wow. So is Sister Charm your first work in bronze?
Oh, no,
No.
it isn't.
What else have you had made in bronze?
I've actually got another charm that is over in America.
Amazing. Where is that charm sitting?
It's in front of the Australian Embassy in Washington.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. How did that commission come about?
The same process. They put my name through. I just got good news from Tina from Canberra saying that I got it, and then I get another information saying that I got that one, and I went, oh God, what I'm going to do now? Yeah, it started freaking me out. I'm just lucky that the curator, Tina Bell, was able to come on this journey with me as well, because then it wouldn't be lonely doing that process by myself. She was there with me. So she learned a lot as well as I did. So that was good.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
That one's actually 3 meters by 3 meters.
Wow.
So that one's the really big one.
Have you been to visit it yet?
No, we're waiting. All the artists are waiting to see if we can get over there. So when they open it, I'm hoping that we all go over and be part of it.
Infused with goodwill as well?
It is. It was talking about their culture as well as my culture.
Yes.
So I was just looking at the materials that we use and they would use, or they had used, or they still use. It was mainly the feathers. I also looked at the constellations. We all look at how we do our journeys through the old days with constellations. We always journey by boat. But with the boat, I actually had, we call it mangroves on the base. So if you had turned upside down, it's a natural forest in where I stayed in Virginia.
Yes.
In their national park.
That was a residency that you did in Charlottesville, is that right?
Yes, Koogaroo 2027 it was. That was the big one that I've ever done.
How long were you there for?
That was a month. And then I did 2 weeks going to Santa Fe. I went to see pottery. You would think I'd get enough from it here, but I went over there to have a look at more pottery. That's sad, isn't it?
I think it's amazing. I think it's a true, it's got a hold of you.
They do a lot of traditional firings, black firings, so that was another reason why I wanted to have a look. They had a certain black firing that we do here, but when I was at uni, we were using sump oil. It burns off and makes the clay look black. And when I was at uni, I got in trouble a fair bit because it stunk.
You're stinking up the firing rooms, were you?
I was actually stinking out the school because we had all painting and printing were above us, so I had to actually stop because the smoke was going up. So yes, I got in trouble a few times for that. So I thought I'll go and look for something that is close to what it would be black. So while I was over in Santa Fe, have a look, see any of the artists that still do traditional firings, and they did. They explained how they did it. So when I came back to do my residency in Canberra, I decided to look at clay bodies to see if I can make a black. And there was a clay that Walker's made. It was chocolate brown. So you take it at a different temperature and you can get as dark as you want. I was in National in Sydney, so I decided to use some of the works that I did make. It was confluence because of the two cultures that I was looking at, myself and the First Nations over in America. And I made a marriage vessel, and I used the chocolate brown as a slip, and it made it really nice and dark. And we used that as one of the works in MCA, and they've got that in their collections as well. So
Yes, you've got works in most of the major institutions, actually. And you've won numerous awards, such as the inaugural Indigenous Ceramic Art Award from the Shepparton Museum in 2007 and again in 2012. And then in 2019, you were also awarded the Premier's Prize for Excellence for your exhibition at the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair. What's your relationship like to these successes?
Mm. I get embarrassed. It's really hard. Yes, I like it, but it gets embarrassing sometimes because I prefer to be more private with the things that I go through. But with Vivian as the person that actually helps me.
Is she your gallerist?
Yes, gallery.
Yes. Vivian Anderson.
Anderson.
Yes.
Yeah. She pushes me to a point where it's good because it's challenging myself as well. Growing up, I was very shy and sometimes I don't like talking.
We've done a stunning job today.
Of course, we're talking about clay. But yeah, a lot of my achievements have been pretty good. For the Cairns one, it was really interesting because that year she just decided to just do me as an artist featured. And I went, okay, I wouldn't mind to see if we can get wallpaper on the wall from one of my weavings. So we did that, and then I had a new body of works on the plinth. So that was different. And I didn't expect to be receiving an award because I was doing ceramics for so long now. I just go with it. I'm excited about the 2 sculptures that I've done with UAP. When it was advertised on Facebook, and I go, oh yeah, I was part of that.
I did that.
Yeah, it's one of those things you just don't really think about until it's there in your face again, and you go, oh, okay, oh yeah, it's a big achievement.
It is. I've heard you say that it took you a little while to even get used to the idea of seeing yourself as an artist.
Yeah, I still do that. It could be because sometimes it's easier to just work than be an artist. And then you go, no, I don't want to go into that same slump that you go and you forget about your practice. So, yeah.
By work, you mean teaching work?
Teaching work. Like I was saying, teach at TAFE.
Yes.
I would do workshops as well. So now I just do workshops. They could be small workshops, big one. I did a conference last year and I actually spoke about my work, and that was interesting. It still spins me out that I get artists to do things, but I have to just go with it. I get embarrassed sometimes.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, it's a vulnerable thing, art making. You're really putting a part of yourself out into the world, you know?
Yeah, I think it is the hardest thing, being an artist, putting yourself out there, because you don't know how people will perceive your work.
Janet, I'd love to talk to you about the drawing, because I understand that it's quite a foundational part of your practice and that you actually draw your works before you make them in the 3D.
Yes, I do. If I'm thinking of something there and then, I just quickly make it. But drawing is always the foundation of everything. So it helps put that idea to plan. Sometimes it don't work, sometimes it does.
I've heard that you destroy works that you aren't happy with. Is that right?
Yes, I do. In a good way.
In a good way.
In a good way. There was a body of work that I hadn't used for so long, and it was just sitting at Vivian's gallery in storage. So I just asked her if she would just destroy it. And then I thought about it. I shouldn't have done that because I could have used it for something else. But I ended up making it better than what it was before. So
yeah,
that's my thinking. It's better off breaking it into pieces and then redoing it, because you can make it better than what it was the first time.
You talk about that a bit. You revisit themes or shapes and then you come back to them and then remake them and take them in a different direction. That's a big part of your creative practice, isn't it?
It is. it just brings it back, that it just reminds everyone that I'm still doing the same things, but it's different to what it was. That's where that never the same came from.
Yes, I see. Yeah. Well, I guess it's a beautiful analogy. It makes me think about you having, one hand connected to the past or tradition, but you're always moving forward,
Yeah, I always need to move forward because you have to think about everyone that's around you as well. Because in the pottery community, everyone's influenced by everyone. So you have to change it. You have to make it new. You have to move forward. So I've got a habit of changing everything around. So then when somebody looks at the work and go, oh, yeah, we can do the same. So I'll end up doing something different again. So, yeah, everything moves forward. Yeah. Slightly look back sometimes, but keep on moving forward.
Janet, we've come to the final question of our interview today, which we've loved asking all of our guests that have come on the podcast, and it's been so interesting to hear everybody's answer. But Janet Fieldhouse, if you could have dinner with any artist from the Newcastle Art Gallery collection, who would it be and why?
I've got to say thank you, P.
Of course. I thought that maybe might be your answer.
Yeah, I thought about that. When I was looking at the listing, I went, I wonder if you've had thank you in your list. So I went searching to see if you've had it. It would be an honour to have lunch and dinner with them.
Lunch and dinner. It's a full day event.
A full day. Stories. You just listen to the stories, she would say. If you had a Janet Debus in that collection and a Greg Daly and Anita McIntosh, I would like to have dinner with them again too.
I love that. You're having a full dinner party.
Oh, yeah. I would actually have those. The conversation you would get from them is full on.
Yeah. Lunch, dinner, extravaganza. Would you be firing together, do you think?
Oh, I reckon so.
Yeah.
They love food and wine, so, yeah, they can have the wine. I'll have the food.
What are you cooking for lunch? What's on the menu, do you reckon?
Oh, I'd do a curry, chicken vermicelli. Oh, yeah, a couple of traditional dinners.
Yum.
Got to have rice. Sorry.
Yes, I agree. Janet Fieldhouse, thank you so much for this delightful conversation, and it's been an absolute honour to get to know you and your practice better.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Conversations from the Collection. If you'd like to know more about Janet and her works in Newcastle Art Gallery's collection, there are links in the show notes, or you can visit the gallery's website at nag.org.au. We hope you'll join us next week for our final episode of Season 2. We'll be visiting the studio of contemporary artist Owen Leong.
At the very beginning, I was using my body to make all this work, but slowly it's been fragmenting and I've been like a magician and I've just disappeared my body off the stage. And I love that because the more comfortable I get in who I am, the less I need to sort of deal with that sort of corporeal element that sort of fascinated me at the beginning.
Conversations from the Collection is a Newcastle Art Gallery production, and we pay our deepest respects to the traditional custodians of the lands on which this podcast was produced. This project is supported by the New South Wales Government through Create New South Wales. And if you enjoyed listening, please like, subscribe, and share us with your friends.